Good evening. Welcome to a Thursday night session of Catspace Uncut. This is Buckets and our dear friend Leon. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you guys?
Not too bad. Thank you for joining us. So tonight's
Been
podcast,
a while, hasn't it?
it
It has
has
been a while, yeah.
Tonight's podcast is going to be one that's going to be very intense. I would like to welcome our new subscribers and current subscribers and viewers. Please join Catspace. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit that notification bell next to subscribe and click on all. That'll give you all the podcasts that we have. If you like what you see, please let us know in the comment section. We have a Facebook for Catspace and Twitter, twitter.com/Catspace podcast. So let's get started. So my topic that I've chosen for tonight is cyberbullying. And cyberbullying happens every day. A lot of people live in fear, feel anxious, scared, and depressed, and feel they have no voice and say nothing. Up to 10 suicide deaths per week happen in Australia due to cyberbullying. 44% of women and 34% of men have experienced one or more forms of online harassment. This is equivalent to 8.8 million people that have experienced cyber harassment in Australia alone. First question is, with the statistics of so many young people being cyberbullied, how do we prevent young people from being cyberbullied, i.e. teens, young adults, and children?
Who wants to go first?
What was the first question?
So with the statistics of so many young people being cyberbullied, how do we prevent young people from being cyberbullied, i.e. teens, young adults, and children?
Oh, well, the first thing is education, to be perfectly honest. Like we basically teach children about HIV and AIDS and the problems with alcoholism and cigarettes. Maybe we could basically potentially teach children the dangers of cyberbullying or the internet to begin with, because let's be perfectly honest out there, there are a lot of freaks out there. So perhaps we could teach them what to look out for when people start asking for things like, are your parents at home right now? What color car is your car? What does your house look like? What is your address? What is your phone number? What are you wearing? All of these questions are like giveaways about where you live. And basically, they could quite easily let down, your security, because it could, and a predator could come in and find you. And if you say, "Hey, I'm 14 years old," and there's another guy that basically says they're 14 years old when really they're 28. Okay, that is a major problem. But with the right education and the right safety net cues, we could potentially lower the risk of cyberbullying.
I agree. I think
that's more stalking than cyberbullying. That's not necessarily bullying at hearsay, but that's more like predatory, not stalking. Now, stalking education it's got to start at home first, because your parents are your best examples, and if you hear them starting to go, they're going to take that to school with them, and their kid, then that generation's gone. So it needs to start at home. It needs to be reinforced as early as primary school, because I don't believe it should be enforced in like kindergarten or preschool. Well, preschool maybe, but not so much in kindergarten. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure how to work out this curriculum or whatever, but it needs to be reinforced every year, because as kids grow up, they get more in tune to what's really going on out there, like as far as like online apps and stuff like that go, like Facebook, Twitter. Like we use in Facebook. You guys mainly use Facebook and a bit of Twitter as well. So the education needs to start at school. The education needs to start at school to stop people from cyberbullying and stuff like that. But it's going to take a long time to stamp that out, because well, the generation that we grew up with those kind of computers starting to happen. We weren't exactly used to the cyberbullying, or not as used to the cyberbullying now as we were back then, because we didn't have those kind of computers back then. But the next generation, like the kids that are in their 20s or up to their 20s, would have grown up with these kind of PCs. And these days, the kids that are now in their teens up to their like up to between 10 and 15 or whatever, they're hardwired into like their iPhones and they're all those other phones. They've still got those Facebook apps on them as well. Wasn't there a program out there a while back called Mr. Nanny that would monitor this kind of stuff?
There was, but then again, you had to pay for that, and it wasn't like a 100%, because if you knew the codes to that, you could just take it down. So yeah,
That's true.
there kind of was, but it wasn't like a 100% guarantee. And even then, here's the thing about your parents versus your children. If your children want to talk to people, which they most likely will, they won't tell your parents anything. And I wish they would.
That's true.
But the reality is they won't want to tell their parents anything, because that's just how it is. I think if it's a teacher from school teaching them these things, that's personally a lot more powerful than, say, a parent doing it, because children will just naturally hide things from their parents. So
That's true.
What I think with the statistic is that when it comes to cyberbullying, we're looking at children, we're looking at teens, we're looking at young adults and adults, if you're in school, for example. I know what's happening.
just a good one.
I don't know how.
That means
sorry.
Kat's got a point.
Yes.
With the statistics is that kids at school, for example, not just when they're on the computer and they've got, these kids, when we used to have MSN Messenger, these kids would like say harmful things, and then the kid would come home and open their MSN Messenger and find things that are horrifying and really cruel and really mean. And we're talking about kids who are vulnerable and, are in fear of getting, beaten up at school, or in fear of talking to a teacher and, or talking to a principal, or, we're talking about children, young adults and teens committing suicide because of it and not being able to confront the bully or their families. In regards to the statistics, is that when it comes to cyberbullying, I think there should be a parental lock on certain sites, whether that be when we had MSN Messenger, to Facebook, to Twitter, to Instagram. Parents should be well aware of what their kids are looking at in this day and age. Parents should be,
especially this day and age, because there's so many ways around it. There's so many tech-minded, smarter people, adults, whatever, who know their way around this kind of stuff just to see what's really going on. And
parents should also, if they're on the internet, for example, they should really have a parental lock on certain websites, but they should also be getting, I don't want to call it pings from their children in their rooms looking at stuff, or, being sent messages, and sort of, parents should monitor what the children are saying and doing, or what's being said and done to them on a daily basis. Like, for example, say you've got a child or a teen or young adult with their iPhone or their Samsung phone or whatever, any kind of phone, and they're videoing that person behind their back. And it's being spread from one student to the next, to the next, to the next, and it's made its round throughout the whole school.
I think the biggest issue here is really the confidence of children, okay? Because the reason why these bullying tactics are so successful, aside from the fact that things go viral, right, is because children, and like anyone else, including teenagers, including adults, can feel embarrassed. And if they don't know how to quite vent out that embarrassment into a positive way, or if they don't know how to basically express that embarrassment, or if they don't know how to wash off the water like a duck's back, if you know what I mean, and that sort of thing, then they'll swallow that Okay. And they'll always be thinking about that one thing. And so if you've got someone who's embarrassed, right? And they're constantly thinking about that embarrassment. And then you've got a child or an adult constantly spreading that embarrassment around an entire school through all the pupils that are there. It only makes things work. So it makes perfect sense why teenagers would want to commit suicide if they don't know how to deal with the embarrassment or the awkwardness for which they feel bullied because of. So I think that's the bigger real tactic that we need to kind of address, because as you know, good things happen and bad things happen. But if we can kind of just get the child or the teenager or an adult to go, okay, yes, this has happened, but it's okay. It's not the end of the world. Then perhaps, even if it does get spread around, the personal or mental health effect of it won't be so bad on the children or the adults or the teenagers.
If I may interject, I think it's important for schools, from the teachers and principals, to come together and have meetings with the children and educate them about cyberbullying. And I'm sure they do that already without me saying it. And I'm sure that happens. But if we look at the statistics, I think every week there should be a program for not just young children, but teens and young adults to take part and participate in and make a change to say no to cyberbullying. And it'd be easier for the child or the young adult or teenager to go to their principal or go to their teacher or go to the parent and say, and print out all the stuff that's being said about them and being shown videos. I think it's important that this is a pivotal moment for these children to not be afraid, to be educated, to be on alert, because
sorry, continue.
Because if their anxiety is super high, guess what's going to happen? Then, as Philip said, they're going to swallow that. They're going to be in agony. It's going to be painful for them. And, they end up taking their own lives. And that's quite sad. And, at the rate we're going at, this is what's happening.
Yes. So we've heard about people that have basically been cyberbullied by accident, right? So I've heard about a case where I don't remember her name, but there was a case where 2 police officers died.
Police officers.
Yeah, police officers, and they died protecting another person whilst there was a bank robbery or something like that. But they died, and but the other person, they got arrested, and she put, again accidentally, the laughing emojis with the tears, when it really was the sad emojis, the fact that the police officers died. But she was cyberbullied badly because people thought she was laughing at the fact that 2 police officers died, when really she was sad that 2 police officers died. And the cyberbullying got so bad that people were not only harassing her on the internet, but they're also getting together and harassing her on the phone, leaving her death threats at her actual home, to the point where they basically had to sell the house and move to another state because it got too much. And she actually went on television to say, what I said was a mistake. I have a high respect for the police. They do a great job. They save a lot of lives.
It was just the wrong emoji.
It was just the wrong emoji, but everyone took that too far. And she was bullied and harassed before it. And her and her entire family had to sell the house and move to another state to stop the bullies from harassing her. And that was a real thing. So it's not just a matter of, something just happening at school. I mean, can you imagine an entire state coming after one person based off an emoji? It's absolutely crazy.
Now, let's look at the statistics, right? It's 44% of women and 34% of men that have experienced one or more forms of online harassment. That statistic is very dangerous, which is equivalent to 8.8 million people that have experienced cyber harassment in Australia alone. that's a very high statistic. And that's quite dangerous. That's why my second question is, how do we encourage victims to speak out?
Well, I mean, like, just you could do it like any other. I mean, the first thing you could do, and again, it takes a lot of trust to do this, but maybe tell your parents about it or tell the police about it. And I think perhaps, I know maybe the police won't really take this as seriously as, say, robbing someone in the street. But if the suicide rate, or at least the depression rate, is at 8.8 million, perhaps we should really be taking this more seriously than we currently are. So, like, because it is a form of violence. It is a form of verbal harassment, which is violence. It may not be punching someone in the face, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have its psychological problems as well.
That's true. I mean, we can encourage them by speaking out, by going directly to a teacher, go directly to a principal,
or go directly to the police.
To the police, even.
I think they should honestly turn this into a real crime where you can get prosecuted for it.
But let's not forget, people at work do get cyberbullied.
Yes,
Pictures do go around, memos do go around, word does go around, and that person feels uncomfortable to go to their work to face that person who's bullying them. And it, as Bucket said, it's very psychological. It's a psychological crime. It's a psychological issue. This has to be dealt with now before it's too late. What do you think?
I had to deal with something like that back in December, and it was a very, because there's really two emotionally upsetting times of the year. They're March and December. Okay, I'm not going to explain why. You guys are not going to know about it, but anyway, because that's a personal deal for me. But there was a comment that was made about me, and it was so hurtful. I was in tears, and I was on my way to work, and I was just so upset. I was just wondering, I was like, do I really even want to be here? I was literally at the train station when I was like, do I really want to be here in that emotional state? No, it's not a good feeling, that's for sure. It was straightened out very quickly, and the person who made the comment got chastised for it, and they were told to, quite frankly, shut the F up, literally. Because it ain't happening in our workplace. I'm not going to name names, but that's what happened, and it got cleaned up right away.
Well, the thing is, I think it's important to recognize that this doesn't just happen to women. This happens to men as well. And men are just as likely to be cyberbullied as women are. I've been cyberbullied before, just playing chess, right? So I've played chess before, and there's like a chat thing.
You got cyberbullied over chess?
Well, it was a distraction. So I'm trying to play chess, and I'm trying to destroy this guy in chess.
Like a psych out kind of thing.
Yeah, like a psych out. And all of a sudden he's trying to have a conversation with me. And I got basically insulted because of my race. And I was like, what? Hang on, you're being racist towards me. Why are you being racist towards me? And it's a good thing that the chat thing, you could actually turn off the chat, because I think that's what I ended up doing, so not to be insulted. But then I turned off the chat thinking, okay, maybe it's just cooled down. But then he started insulting me again. So I was actually really annoyed, and I just got to the point where it's like, you know what, I'm just enjoying a really good game of chess here, but this isn't worth my time. So I'm just going to press X at the top or cancel, as they say, and just not even play, because it's not even worth my time to play with you. I don't even have the time or the patience to play with someone so racist. But the thing is, it could happen to anyone.
The thing, like, there is such a thing as, like, you know, trying to psych out. That's fair enough, but you can psych out. That's fine, but when you start going after race, then you're going one step too far.
I mean, for example, take me, for example, I've experienced cyberbullying. Now, that left me shaken, quite frightened, actually. And I spent 2 nights, 3 nights crying and shaking. And to be honest, it wasn't deserved. But do you know what? I was able to find a way to say, hey, it's not okay. This is not on. I didn't hide what I was feeling or thinking. I wasn't angry, but I was frustrated as to why it happened. But when I spoke up and said, no, it's not okay, I want this dealt with, I pretty much felt good enough within me to feel better about the situation. So that next time if it happens again, I know what to do.
I think
Yeah, come to think about it, something like that happened last year, midway through last year. When I was getting troll posted, like I was posting comments and stuff like that, but the person who at that point really had it in for me kept on posting all this negative, SHI, I think there's a T in there somewhere. They were just troll posting, to be honest, I think it's what they call shit posting, I think. Forgive me if I'm wrong. But they would post like, yeah, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, well, it's just like a instant shot across the bow, so to speak. Eventually I had enough of this person, and I eventually blocked that person. I haven't heard a post from him. I haven't heard a post from that person ever since because of that shit post. He pretty much followed me everywhere just to troll post me, and just until I'd had enough. I blocked him on Facebook. I blocked him on Twitter as well. I'm not sure if he's on Instagram or whatever, but if he's on there and I find him, I'm going to block him there as well.
I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm very sorry that happened.
I think with the
I think you were the one that actually set up. Why aren't you blocking this guy? And it was like freedom of speech. I may not agree with what he says, but I may not agree with some of the stuff that I may have agreed with in the past. I don't agree with now, obviously, but everybody has a freedom of speech as long as I don't go too far. And this person went one step too far, and I went one step towards the block button.
Which I'm very proud of you for.
I think maybe that's the answer to the problem, which is if you think that someone's harassing you, just block them. Let them cool down. Or better yet, just turn off the computer altogether. You do have the ability. I know that Facebook is addictive, and I know you want to know what all your friends are doing 100% of the time or whatever. But if you feel that you're being harassed on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, you can shut down the app. You can block the posts. You can block the feed. Yes. It's not that hard. Okay. And the thing is, once you blocked that post down or you blocked that feed down, guess what? The power's in your hands.
Yeah.
The power's in your hands.
Absolutely.
But every time you don't do that and you give them full range to basically make fun of you or upset you or whatever, you're effectively giving them the power. So that's the first thing. You can talk to your parents about that, which is great, but you yourself have the power to block, and everyone's got that power.
Exactly. Next question is, what steps can we take to prepare?
Hang on. Before we go into the next question, question, I do have to let you people know that coming up on my screen was saying that my internet connection has been unstable, so we might end up having issues. I'm not sure, but we'll keep that in mind.
Okay. Next question. What steps can we take to prepare kids, young teens, and young adults at school that would prepare them to be alert and aware when it comes to cyberbullying? I know we've just mentioned this, but the steps we can truly take as buckets, and you did say, which is talk to your teachers, talk to your principal, talk to the parents, talk to the police, educate them on cyberbullying. Every week, have an hour or so out and just have a class about cyberbullying. How they
what might help if you're a kid, what might help? Those picture books, picture books. Don't do what Donnie don't does or whatever, that's a very powerful message that you can send. If you're a kid, that's a very powerful message, and that kid will have that sink in, and they won't do it.
What do you think?
Well, I don't know why we shouldn't include this as part of stranger danger, to be perfectly honest. So maybe we should re-educate what the definition of stranger danger actually is, because we do have already a neighborhood watch, and we do
Yes,
have
we do.
a lot of evidence to suggest that neighborhood watches actually do work. Okay, so if there's someone that they don't recognize in that neighborhood, there are people that have eyes on said people, and that does work. So maybe we could somehow incorporate cyberbullying into stranger danger. Another thing that we could potentially do is, in school we had something called pastoral care. I'm pretty sure it's still run today. And I think perhaps we should probably take a day out to look at the steps of what you should or shouldn't do on the internet. Because the thing is, the internet is already a part of the education system already. Children are using the internet frequently, and it's one of the reasons why we're actually getting smarter as human beings, because we're continuously researching things. Okay, whereas before you'd have to read an entire book, right?
Like, you would have done a hell of a lot of research on this topic, Kat, and as
I
you
did.
explained it, so you would have had to have done a lot of research on the net to actually get this. People are
Yeah,
getting smarter.
absolutely.
There's a lot of people that are getting stupider though, because people are just using social media just to troll people. At times, and I have openly said this, that social media like Twitter and Facebook at times become the toilet of social media. They don't like, if you don't, people don't like what you post, they shit can you to death, and that's why you have to block them quick.
Do you know what they should actually do? Like, they should legitimately use video games as a way to teach children about cyberbullying.
Maybe if you're a kid up to like 10, up to from like 5 to 20 or something, that could be a good educational way to do things.
Yeah, because the thing is, if it's fun and kids like it, kids will play it.
Yeah,
And they'll learn important lessons from it too.
Exactly. So I think that's the way to do it. If we're going to teach kids about cyberbullying, we can do it in the classroom where they won't give a damn.
Yeah,
Or we could, sell it to them in the form of a video game.
exactly. Like, take, for example, I know this is a little off topic, but take what's happening now in this day and age is we're all in lockdown, and parents are once again having to homeschool their kids. The good thing about it is that there's no other school kids around, so there's no way for them to be in danger, but that would be the low case. But there is still a high factor of them being in trouble with cyberbullying, because they're in their rooms, they're on their phones, they're on their computers or tablets or iPads, they're still going to get cyberbullied.
Yeah, but here's the problem is that it's interesting that you said in trouble with cyberbullying. The thing is, although in lockdown there is social distancing or whatever, and there is more homeschooling, that's if they actually do bother to school them at home. What you'll find is that kids are still able to be cyberbullied because everyone's at home on the internet.
That's right.
So the key to all of this, basically stopping a child from being cyberbullied, is adult supervision.
That's right.
So if you have a set time for when a child can and cannot use the internet, or you have a parent that's continuously watching everything that the child is doing when they're on the internet, they will not be cyberbullied, because a parent will be seeing everything that they are writing and doing and looking up.
That's why I said earlier on, which is parents need to have parental lock on certain websites. But we mustn't forget that kids now have, even as the lowest age of 5-year-olds, have iPhones or tablets.
Yes, that's correct. I mean,
and they're still sitting on it. And we've got teenagers as well. So we can't really, parents should find a way to get this little ping that says your son or daughter has been visiting the site, or, what's being said. I know you can't put a security camera because that's illegal, but there has to be a way of protecting, kids, protecting adults, young adults, protecting teens from happening.
Well, they do have something called Kids Messenger.
I've heard about it, but my problem is with that Kids Messenger, I've heard of what you're talking about, is parents, pedophiles and stuff like that can masquerade as bloody kids. That's a
correct.
problem there
That's
as
very
well.
true. But the thing is that in order for you to get Kids Messenger, you have to get a code from the parents themselves. So it's not that easy to just download Kids Messenger. In order for it to be activated, it has to be activated with a code that your parents have, and your parents need to activate it. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Hmm.
But what about the person on the other end? If it's not a kid,
Unless, well, the thing is, your parents who have normal Messenger can see who your child is speaking to.
Mm.
so that's what kids messages is about.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's like I'm on Kids Messenger with Kat's nephews, and so I'm able to talk to her nephews whenever they want to
With
call.
me by his side.
Right, yeah, exactly. With Kat by my
right.
side, but her brother can literally see if their children have been talking to me.
Right.
And they can see how many hours they've been talking to me for. They can see what they've been talking to me about. So it is really quite scary in a way, because it does kind of turn you into a mature adult, and because you'll know that there's going to be at least 2 other adults that are going to be watching what you say to these kids.
But here's the problem, right? Kids nowadays, you can't stop them from going onto YouTube, for example, even if they're being
Yeah.
cyberbullied or not. You can't stop them from being on YouTube. But parents have to sit with children and explain to them, YouTube is open to 7 billion people around the globe, 7 billion. And everybody is public. It's not a private page. It's not Facebook. It's not Twitter. It's not Instagram. It's a public forum where people from around the world can say whatever they want. And parents need to know who they're speaking to, or what video they're watching, or why they're watching, and how many hours they've spent.
Well, maybe that's like a solution, which is to make, if you feel that you are being cyberbullied, make your page private.
Yeah.
That would mean that you only
works.
invite who you want to basically invite, and random strangers can't find your site.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. That's right.
Next question. If cyberbullying happens at work, is there a way that the person can quietly talk to their boss about the situation without the uncomfortable feeling of being at work? And that for me would be a big tick yes, because if they're uncomfortable, and cyberbullying could mean anything, could be anything, that person needs to print out the documents of memos or emails, messages on their phone, keep it, have a quiet meeting with their boss in the boardroom or in the office, show the evidence they've got and say, I fear for my life, or I don't want to work here anymore. I dread coming here. I can't sleep at night. I'm having to cry. I feel uncomfortable working with that person. I no longer wish to come here.
I personally think that
I'll go into another section of their work.
I think that there should be 2 sections. There should be an HR section where you can report cyberbullying to HR, but I also think that there should be an independent body for which you can report cyberbullying to. So this way, if you've got a situation where your boss decides to cyberbully you, okay, and he's obviously the boss of the organization, you're not going to feel intimidated if there's an independent body that you can speak to, because if it's all done in-house, people can feel awkward, or they could feel like their job is on the line if they complain, and they can basically feel in fear. And that's a real problem within organizations that say, well, you can threaten, you can go to HR and complain, but we're just going to fire you for malpractice if you do that. So that's why I think there should be an independent cyberbullying organization, so that the bosses don't take full advantage of cyberbullying, and aren't biased towards their workers.
I think every workplace should have a meeting or what's it called, e-learning or on-the-job learning, and have seminars about that. What do you think?
I think, isn't there already an what do you call it, webinar kind of thing, where workplaces are supposed to be teaching the do's and don'ts of what you can do and what
Yes,
can't
but
you
yes,
do, I
there,
believe.
there has to be an
The issue is, do you, the thing is, when you complain to a boss about cyberbullying that might be
said
going,
issue.
or any type of bullying, whether it's sexual assault or sexual harassment within the workforce itself,
Or just bullying.
or any type of bullying in general, it's almost like there's a fear that if you speak up, you might be fired. And that's why I think that although they have that already in workforces, I think there should be an independent organization instead. Now, we already have several independent organizations already to do with many forms of harassment, whether that be racial, discriminatory, whatever. But I think that maybe there should be another branch for cyberbullying as well. Or perhaps we could incorporate that as a different form of abuse, or in one of those branches.
Even, which is, as you said, you did have a point, which is nowadays there's webinar training, there is, but if you look at not just webinar, you're talking about on the job, where when you start the job or before you start the job, they should have a seminar of current employees and new employees to make sure that there's a zero tolerance bullying at the workplace.
But what the thing is, what if maybe there should be not just like a zero tolerance thing? What if there is a punishment at the end of it? So if you cyberbully someone, maybe they should get a $4,000 fine.
Or get a warning.
No, I don't even think they should get a warning. I think they should basically either get a $4,000 fine or make it a criminal charge. Because if you give someone a warning,
Or grounds for termination.
No grounds for termination.
Yeah, I mean, if you give someone a warning, I mean, that's effectively saying, well,
We're on to you. We're watching you.
but you're going to get away with it. So I think they should, the first time you do it should be the last time you do it. And if you get it, you either get a $4,000 fine or
termination.
Your termination of employment.
And there's
Goes on
definitely
their
gonna be
file as well, so they understand your profile a bit better.
yeah, and definitely have a black mark against the name of that person.
Yeah.
Which will make it harder for that person to get employed.
Yeah. So I think if they don't have this warning system where you go, oh yeah, you're warned not to ever do this again. Okay. Straight off the books, if they've caught doing it, give them a fine, or straight off the books, fire them. Because,
fire them. Simple.
The thing is, if you just give them a warning, guess what? They'll just do it again, but they'll get worse, and they will hang around the person who reported them, which means that it's like basically giving them a get out of jail free card.
Yeah. Next question. As cyberbullying is the cause of many problems, should counseling be provided for people experiencing any pain or trauma that they have experienced?
Absolutely. Look, counseling is necessary because cyberbullying can shake people up. It can shake people up mentally. It can actually ruin the productivity of a person working. So it is essential that they put in a counselor in a workforce to see how people are going, because if someone of strong mental mind is also a really good productive worker, whereas someone who is at weak mental mind is a very poor worker, because they'll just be overwhelmed and they have a higher level of gaining burnout. This is why in hospitals they have usually a psychologist on hand, because they're continuously seeing traumatic events which they need to cope with.
Exactly. And I agree with Buckets. I think there should be a counselor, whether that's at school or whether that's at work or anywhere. There should be a counselor on site, because it will help to, talk about things, get things off your chest, which will remain private and confidential. And it'll help to sort of level oneself and not live in fear. What do you think?
Absolutely agree. I always think there should be someone there, like a counselor or something like that, you can talk to, just to get it off your chest, because these people understand what you're going through.
Yeah.
Mm.
And sorry it took me so long, but I actually realized after about 35 minutes that I forgot to put my glasses on. So
It's all right. It's
I
fine.
look
But
better now.
what do you think?
You look smarter.
Thank you.
What do you think?
Bullying. No. I definitely think so. I think there needs to be some sort of counselor or whatever, someone you could talk to at the workplace, like a counselor, to someone to let people know that if there is bullying going on, there's someone you could talk to, and that being confidential.
Mm,
Mm.
I agree. Last question. How do we raise awareness for cyberbullying and making sure that all people are safe and free from cyberbullying, and how to stop cyberbullying in its tracks?
Easy. I think we've mentioned this before, but probably the easiest way to do this is press the block button, or turn off the computer, or
Just report it.
or report it to a police officer, or legislate that this becomes an actual crime.
Or talk about it. It is important to talk about it. It needs to be spoken about. Speak up, speak loud, and don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Yes, I definitely agree. There is ways to to limit the amount of cyberbullying. Obviously, if you're a kid, I like the idea of a picture book. Just so kids can know what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, and also, as they get older, reinforce at school. Obviously, reinforce that cyberbullying is not okay and all that sort of stuff. And as they get older, they will understand that there are certain areas to stay away from, and that's cyberbullying.
I think one thing that we could potentially do, but it might take a bit of time and money, is potentially stop glorifying hackers in movies. Because I don't know if you've really noticed this, but hackers seems to be a really cool or new aged badass that's basically in a lot of gangster movies, new gangster movies today. And I think a lot of people kind of aspire to that and want to be like said people. And so those type of influencers aspire people to break the law via hacking.
Mm.
So maybe
there could be like a disclaimer or something before the movie starts, instead of like a disclaimer after the movie. Because usually at the end of a movie, it's like pure coincidence, blah 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 blah. Maybe something like that at the start of the movie, or before a movie. Maybe that's where it could be if you're watching movies.
Yeah. But I just want to say to our subscribers and viewers, to any new subscriber or viewer, anyone watching, please speak up, speak loud, speak clear. Say no to cyberbullying. Keep your eyes peeled. Talk to a teacher, talk to a counselor, talk to a principal, talk to a police officer, talk to a boss, and speak up, and don't ever, ever, ever be afraid, because we are with you every step of the way. And there are people out there that you can speak to, they can feel safe, or talk to a parent or a loved one. Never, ever be afraid, and it's okay. We are right with you.
And look, just remember that although you might feel that you're powerless, you've always got power.
Exactly.
And it's just a matter of accessing that power.
Power is in your hands.
Exactly. And the important thing is block and report, or go straight to someone you love. As I said, whether that's a teacher, a parent, a police officer, a counselor, or a boss. Talk, open up, and don't ever be afraid. Us three at Catspace, we are right with you. You can always come and talk to us, talk to somebody, because living in fear should never be allowed. You should never live in fear.
Yeah, well said.
Well, I think that's
There
it.
you go.
Thank you so much for joining us. Is there any, don't forget once again to subscribe to our channel. Click on the notification bell, click on all, they'll give you all the podcasts from us. If you like what you see, leave a comment. We do have a Twitter page, twitter.com/Catspace podcast, and a Facebook page. Let us know if there's a topic you'd like, so we can cover that for you and give you a shout out. Final thought?
No
And,
thoughts
just,
at all.
if our final thoughts, like you said, the power is in your
Your
hands.
hands.
Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next week. Bye.
Bye.